Very much. Each day it gets harder and harder to get up. Does anybody else have that problem? And I don't drink, I don't use drugs, I was just watching Casablanca. Anybody there last night? Wasn't that? Yeah. So many people said they'd never seen the film on a screen, only on TV. And then sometimes just halfway through because you're just going through the dial. It's such a great movie and it still holds up. Well, this morning we have a very special treat for us here in Traverse City. We have a new board member on the board of directors of the Traverse City Film Festival. He's also a good friend of mine and one of the most influential people in rock and roll in the last 20 years. From the band he formed called Rage Against the Machine to his solo work as the Nightwatchman, and lately he's been hanging out with Bruce. So please give a warm Traverse City welcome to Mr. Tom Morello.
Thank you. Hello, and good morning.
Well, thank you for coming to Traverse City.
My pleasure.
Thank you for being on our board.
My pleasure as well.
Brought your family here.
Yes, I did.
Wife,
We're having a great time
kids.
so far.
It's really great to have you here. I guess we should start by talking about how you and I came upon each other.
Yes.
And then and we can tell a couple stories.
Sure.
Then we can talk about what's going on.
Sure.
We'll open it up to you guys, and you can join us, okay? So actually, let's start with before we met.
Okay.
I can tell you how I first became exposed to you. What was your...
I think my first exposure was TV Nation. I think that's when you first came across my radar, and then that led me. I'm not sure what the time that led me back to Roger and Me, and then The Awful Truth as well. So I was a big fan of you as a television producer and director and actor to begin with. And then Rage Against the Machine was always sort of looking for unique and unusual ways to make videos that combined the band's politics with the art. And I think that we asked you to do, you were unavailable to do a video for some song. At one point, we eventually connected very dramatically, which we'll discuss momentarily. But
Right. And my very first exposure to you and the band was I was at Tower Records down on Broadway and 4th Street or wherever that is in the village. And I used to like just to go in and remember in the old days record stores.
Sure. Yes.
And Tower, even though they became quite a big chain, but they were at that time they were still pretty much L.A., New York, Sacramento, San Francisco. But they so I would just leaf through things. I would just going up and down the aisle. I don't know these people. I'd listen. And I came across. I was in the R's. And I came across this thing called Rage Against the Machine. And I didn't even need to listen to it.
We were looking for the least subtle name possible for the band. We heard that Down with the Establishment was taken, so we went to Plan B.
But I just looked at it. Damn, I want that name. I want to change my name from Michael Moore to Rage Against the Machine. And I just thought it was like the coolest name for a band. And you're right, it was so, in a way, to the average listener, it might sound a little over the top. But you know how like what comedy works, where you're just if you just keep the joke going, it reaches a point where people are going, okay, enough already. But then you keep going, and then you can't stop laughing because you've passed that point.
Yeah.
But so anyway, so I bought the album and took it home, and oh my God, it was just so alive and energizing, and I couldn't like put a label on it. Is this metal? Is this rap? What is this? But then the lyrics, of course, were just, and Zach screaming this. That was just like, wow. I was so cathartic by the end of the album. I just remember sitting there, like, that felt good. But anyways, but I want to say this, and for those of you maybe a little older or not that familiar with Rage Against the Machine, this, I mean, most rock critics, rock historians, fans will definitely agree with the statement that Rage Against the Machine was really, if not one of the key bands of the 1990s that really took rock and roll into a whole new area and merged the sounds of white and black in a way that they might have been merged back in the 60s. But then it kind of, radio got segregated, and you wouldn't hear Motown with Led Zeppelin anymore, and but Rage just kind of kicked the doors open, and so many other bands followed as a result of this, and I think because you gave them the freedom that you could be both, and you didn't have to have a label, put on you. Plus, you weren't just talking the talk. Your politics, you guys walked the walk. I mean, you really did so many things to involve yourselves politically in what was going on. And I think if I remember my dates correctly, when you started and when I first became aware, it was maybe the last year of the Bush 1. It
was, I think the first record came out in 92, so the songs might have been written in
last year of Bush
91.
Yeah, right. Okay, so you wrote them in 91. And so you wrote these songs for the first album after, at that point, 12 years of Reagan and Bush. Mm-hmm. So America had definitely changed. We were not the country we were before that. And the rage, I think, that a lot of people felt was certainly expressed. But you see, it wasn't just, and I say this when I go to talk to film students or whatever about, and maybe people have heard me say this before, but if you put the politics ahead of the art, no one's probably going to listen to you.
Yeah.
If you make a shitty album or a shitty movie, no one's going to come. And then all those things you wanted to do politically are gone. But of course, what you guys did was you were such a supreme band with this new and fresh sound, with this incredible singer, and instantly, the best guitar player in rock and roll sitting right here next to me. And, right?
Kind of you.
And for you older people, if you don't want to listen to a Rage song or whatever, go on YouTube and just type in "The Ghost of Tom Joad," Springsteen Morello, or even Springsteen Morello will probably bring it up. And Bruce brought him out on the stage one night 5 years ago,
something like that. Yeah.
It was as a guest, yeah. And Tom played the guitar on the song, but did these incredible guitar solos and sang, which you did not sing in Rage Against the Machine. And it is just the most amazing thing to see. I really encourage you to look at that. Anyway, so that was my friend. And then you guys contacted me to make this music video, and I was busy at the time. I don't know what I was doing. What was I doing?
Probably making a movie or sticking it to the man.
Down with the establishment.
Would be my guess.
I was making Bowling for Columbine. That's what I was doing. Yeah. But
we were determined. We kept coming back. We asked
you wouldn't stop.
And he
was
was busy.
He tried to entice me by saying the band's all going to wear Reagan and Bush masks or something. So
yeah, so finally we do hook up for it was the record Battle of Los Angeles, and finally our schedules aligned, and it was a song called "Sleep Now in the Fire." And Mike had an idea. He was like, "We're going to film this on Wall Street. It's going to be there was a narrative to the video, and our political interests merged in this, but the performance aspect was going to be an unexpected one. We had a permit to play on the federal the steps of the federal
where George Washington took the oath of office.
Yeah.
Do you know this area, Wall Street, and there's like a L shape there.
Yeah, and there's steps there of the federal building. We had a permit to play there. We did not, however, have a permit to play on the city street, and so our directions were very vague. But I had never met Michael in person before the day of the video shoot, and there was one burning question that I had to ask him. So we're meeting in the trailer beforehand to talk about what's going to go on during the day. I'm like, Mike, I'm a big fan of your work. I love TV Nation. I love this movie. I love that movie. You're always out there. You're so fearlessly sticking it to the man, and you're in these situations that are these crazy confrontational situations. Tell me, how many times have you been arrested? And he very cockily says, "Why, Tom, I've never been arrested." And I said, "Mike, "You've never worked with Rage Against the Machine." And that turned out to be prophetic. So Mike is a fantastic director of film and of talent, and so he tells us, whatever happens today, don't stop playing. No matter what happens, do not stop playing. So we're up there on the steps where we have the permit, and now I hate to burst your bubble, but when bands make music videos, they're not really playing the song. Well, there used to be a compact disc. Now I'm sure there's but there's a CD playing, and you mime along to it with all of your fervor, and so that's what we're doing. And we have our instruments and our amplifiers there, though, so it appears like we're playing on the steps. And there's no audience. There's no Rage Against the Machine audience. It's Wall Street bankers kind of walking back and forth to their trading and their lunches, and sort of looking up, bemused, and like, I think that's the guy from Down with the Establishment up there. So we're playing, and it's going very, very well. We're getting a number of takes, and now Michael tells us we're going to move from the federal steps where we have a permit down to the city street where we do not have a permit. So the band moves down, and we begin playing again, and New York's finest comes up to the band. They don't know one from the other of the other people, and they say, "Well, you don't have a permit to play here." And now we remember Mike's one directorial note: no matter what happens, don't stop playing. So something's happening, that is, the police are telling us to stop, but we remember to not stop playing.
And the music is on because we have loudspeaker system.
Loudspeaker. So the music is roaring.
It's roaring, and it does, even in live, look like
of course,
we're playing and singing.
Yeah, so it's blaring, and the cop is becoming, the police sergeant becoming apoplectic because he's very, very clear in his directorial note that we need to stop playing now and that we do not have a permit. But Mike's our guy, so we're going to keep playing. And you can see the veins on his neck, and he's going to take matters into his own hand. So he reaches over and he unplugs the guitar. And much to his surprise, the music keeps playing. He unplugs the bass player's guitar. And the sound does not diminish in volume one bit. And the look on his face is like, Rage Against the Machine has some sort of magical power. And you see him like cops are normally used to being in the catbird seat. This guy's like, there's some voodoo going on here. And now he's enraged. So he's like, someone's going to be arrested. So he turns to Timmy, the bass player, who's a pretty substantial, he's like a cage fighter. He's like, maybe not that guy. And then he turns to our security dude, Smitty, who's maybe twice the size of Timmy. He's not that guy. And then he sees Michael Moore, who is hauled off in irons for the first arrest of his career. And we'd like to take full credit for that. Now, as Michael is being led away to the Hooskow, he gives his second directorial note of the day. Over his shoulder, he shouts to the band, "Take the New York Stock Exchange."
Across the street, yeah.
Which is across the street. And so we're like, all right. So we put down our instruments, and in the middle of day trading, the band marches. I'm the first one through the door, and when you see the video for Sleeping Down the Fire, all of this is captured. The video is supposed to be about something else. It ends up being about what I'm describing. And so I walk through the door. The cameras are not through first, so they don't catch me. I go through the doors, and there's a minimum wage security guard who's like, "May I help you?" I'm like, "I'm here to take the New York Stock Exchange. Is that right or left?" He realizes that perhaps I don't belong, calls security, and they throw us all out of the building very, very dramatically. But that was the video for Sleep Down the Fire.
But also, as you guys entered, you actually got in. Yeah. And by that point, too, a large crowd had now gathered while they were on the street where we were playing, and a lot more young people. And when they saw the band charge the stock exchange, everybody thought, yeah. So now there's like 100 people rushing across the street, and the stock exchange sees this, and they must have had a protocol for this or whatever, and they hit a button, and the metal grating, the doors on the outside, all the doors of the stock exchange slammed shut like a vault. And later we heard that in all the years of the stock exchange, the doors had never been locked to shut people out
during the middle of a trading day.
During a trading day, this was the first time that this had happened. But yeah, I think that it bothered me that when the cop looked at Smitty, the bodyguard bouncer, what is that? The god is calling. Weird.
Sort of medieval chimes.
Never heard that before. So the cop looks at Smitty. The cop looks, and you know, it was so. What was bothersome to me is that he went, "No, I can't do that." And they, "No, I can't." And he looks at me. "Oh, that's a piece of cake." Like, and
you were not emanating voodoo in the same way that the band members
He was
were.
so embarrassed by when he had these two plugs in his hand and the music was going. And that first look he had on his face was exactly that. I'd never seen really a cop have that look of like suddenly he was in Close Encounters of the Third Kind or something. He just like, whoa, what is this? But he was so mad, and they hauled me up the federal steps, right past George Washington statue where he took the oath, and into the building, which is run by the National Park Service. And so there's park officers there now, rangers. And they take me into this, they don't have like a cell or anything, so they just take me into this room. And I'm talking the whole way, trying to talk myself out of this thing. And we go in this room, and I tell them, hey, guys, we didn't mean any disrespect and this and that, and we didn't, my part of my directorial style is permit schmermit, so it's kind of like, seriously, because with a documentary, you don't get permits. You just kind of go, then you run, then you go again. It's the way it works. But I was able to talk them out of taking those handcuffs off me and not taking me down to the police station. And they gave me
charmer.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it was when I told the cop, dude, you're going to be on MTV. I said, you need to really kind of see this on a whole different light. Your kids are going to be so proud of you that you're in a Rage Against the Machine video, and he is.
Yeah, I promise you'll make the final cut if you let me go.
You will
right
make
now.
the final cut. But he softened up, and they let me go with a ticket. But and then I couldn't find you guys because you'd follow my direction. You'd taken the New York Stock Exchange. But so that was our very first day.
That's correct.
Of knowing
Working
each other.
Together, yeah.
And then we did another video after that. And what was it? Sleep Now that was nominated for the MTV?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
Video Awards.
Michael also takes credit for Rage Against the Machine broke up in the year 2000, and he takes full credit for the band breaking up.
But I don't. Credit isn't the word I use. I felt very guilty for causing.
You were partially. I mean, there was a fractious environment, but you maybe helped the fractious baby bird leave the nest.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Our video, just so that we were nominated. That video, the exciting video that we just described to you, was nominated for an MTV award, which at the time meant something. So, yeah, it was a big deal back then. And our competition, our chief competition, was a band called Limp Bizkit. You may or may not remember them, but so we were there, and we were very proud of this work. And I didn't put a lot of stock in whether or not we won an MTV award, but Mike came to Radio City to the awards ceremony, and as it became closer to our award, Timmy, the guy that they were afraid to arrest, the muscular guy in the band, he became suspicious about our seating arrangements. It seemed like all of the winners were seating in one section, and that was not the section that we were seated in. So he turned to me early in the day, and he said, do you think I should run up on stage, knock over the podium, and climb the scaffolding and bring it down? And Timmy says stuff like that from time to time and it's anyway, and so like I don't know. I'm like, no, let's just enjoy the show for right now. I think the Wayans brothers were hosting. It was a fine time.
And I'm sitting in between the two of you.
That's correct.
You're on one side
That's
of me,
correct.
and Timmy's on the other side of me.
Yeah.
And you're right about that, about the seating, because he kept murmuring to himself beside me, Limp Bizkit's next to Red Hot Chili Peppers. Limp Bizkit's next to Red Hot Chili Peppers. I'm like, it was brewing,
right?
But I didn't know.
Right.
It was building.
So our category comes up, and they announce the nominees, and sure enough, Limp Bizkit is announced as the champion for their video for Break Stuff, which you may remember that. And it is a video that is not discussed at film festivals to this day. So, and Tim turns to Zach and says, "Should I do it?" And now it becomes like the last Rubik's Cube click comes into place. And like, oh, this is a real thing that he's talking about him. And Zach says, "No." And he turns to Brad and he says, the drummer of the band, "Should I do it?" Brad says, "No." He turns to Michael and says, "Should I do it?" And Michael says, "Tim, follow your heart." And that carried a lot of weight with Timmy, and I was the last one that he spoke to, though Follow Your Heart was ringing his ears. He said, "Tom, should I do it?" I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Absolutely not." And he was up and out of his chair. And
you are not to go up there.
And moments later, he was up on the...
Well, they announced Limp Bizkit as the winner, which, of course, that's the last spark he needed.
That's right, yeah.
And we're like 4 or 5 rows from the stage.
That's
maybe.
right.
He gets up like Roberto Benigni at the Oscars.
That's right.
And climbed over on top of seats, on the backs of seats over the next.
He's leaping over Eminem. He's leaping over
Eminem.
Pink,
But then he gets to the front row, and there's the Secret Service, because this is the last year of Clinton Gore, and the Gore daughters were sitting in the front row, and the Secret Service is there, and he leaps over the Secret Service. They're not able to get him.
That's right.
And he goes right up on that stage, and there's this tower, part of the set design, and he climbed
25 feet.
Oh
maybe.
no,
more than
radio. You know the radio.
Yeah.
No, this is huge.
Yeah.
If the screen at the state is 50 feet,
right? Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
It was scary because you realize part of this is paper mache.
Yeah. He was up it in a flash. I mean, he was at the top of that thing in a flash, perched like a gargoyle, and all the attention. All the attention in the room was focused on, Limp Bizkit standing up and being congratulated by, J-Lo, whoever was handing out the award. And no one noticed it except for us. There's this creature, looming above them.
But Jennifer Lopez, she kept looking up. She really thought he was going to bring the thing down and fall on her.
Well, that was his intent. That was... So poor Zach is already back at the hotel thinking, this is maybe not the right band for me.
Well, no, actually, yeah. But let me just say that right when he did this, we stay because now we know we're going to have to get Tim out of trouble.
Right. That's right.
But Zach is furious that he's done this, and they're actually old friends, aren't they, from Orange County and with school and whatever. But anyway, so Zach just got up out of his seat and tore out of Radio City like, "That's it, I'm over, that's done." And should we tell the rest of what happened there how we got Tim down?
It was not easy to get him down.
No, but we were trying to coaxing him, and then one of the cops went up, and now they've shifted the awards to the other side of the stage, so the home audience can't see any of this.
Yeah.
And they finally,
he was up there for about a half hour.
He was up there a good half hour.
It was like a hostage situation.
And we're trying
this is all a pre-9/11 world, by the way.
Yes, right.
These days, you don't take the New York Stock Exchange and you not jump over the president's daughter. And that doesn't fly. So don't try this at home, kids. That's not gonna.
It's literally 10 months before 9/11.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, finally he comes down, or they coax him down.
They tell him the stuff that you tell people. They're like, "Tim, you can go right back to your hotel room. There's not going to be any problem at all. Just come down, man. Everything's going to be fine." As they're waiting to
And I think that by that point, the cops had arrested Smitty, the bodyguard.
Yeah.
And I'm going, "Hey, man, they've taken Smitty away." I think that's also what got him. Like, he had to come down and save Smitty. And so he came down. As soon as he came down, those cops beat the shit out of him.
It was a melee.
They had their sticks out, and they just...
Well, Tim got in a few good blows before.
No, he didn't. Yes, he didn't stand there like Jesus. No. He was... There were a couple cops that got hit too.
They got hit pretty hard.
And then there was a wrestling match on the floor, and we're trying to, I remember seeing Kid Rock there, and he's stoned, and he's like, "What's going on here?"
Because people don't know this is the dude from Rage Against the Machine. Like, it's not like an announcement that the guy from the bass player from Rage is at the top. It's just like a dude went up there, and now there's
right. And
he made the papers the next day, though.
Oh yeah, no, and got charged with assaulting a police officer, and they took him away, and we were going to go to this after party at a bar down on the Lower East Side, and
it's just me and you. We're the only ones left.
I know, and he called Zach on the phone. Come on down, it's okay. No, he wouldn't come down, and he says the band's over. The band's over. That's it. And I'm like, oh my God, no, let me talk to him because I can't be responsible for this. But it didn't work.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't come back. And at that moment, for that time period, for many, many years, actually, that was the end of Rage Against the Machine.
Follow your heart.
Yeah. And follow your heart. But I was afraid at that time, if that story ever got out to your fans, to the fans of Rage, I would have a miserable life from that moment on. Because
you were not responsible, but it was a
when they played
punctuation mark to the whole thing.
Yeah, I guess Tim is responsible for his own actions, but they played the Palace in Auburn Hills, and just went down to see him, say hi, and all this. And they said, "Hey, why don't you go out and introduce us on the stage?" I said, "Really? You want me to?" Yeah. We had Tom's mother do it in Chicago the night before, and I said, "Okay, sure, I'll do it." And so I'd never been on the stage at the Palace. I'd never really seen what that viewpoint looks like, that POV. And I just before I walk out of the curtain, you say to me, remember, if they throw stuff at you, that means they like you. and you had a cut on your lip from the night before because somebody had thrown a glow stick at you.
That's right, yeah.
And
out of love.
Yes, and so I walk out on the stage, and it's Michigan, most of the
hometown,
your fan, they knew, they were kind of, hey, whoa, and then but there's this giant mosh pit. There's no seats on the main floor, and it was the most amazing thing to see these bodies weaving in and out of this mosh pit. I'd never seen anything like it. It was just the most amazing. I mean, you guys see this every night. So I went up to the microphone, and sure enough, shit just started coming my way. Oh, Michael Moore!
Yeah, we love that guy.
Oh, Jesus. Anyway, so I introduced the band, but since then you guys have got back together a couple times.
Yeah, a couple
and
times.
Toured, and Zach's trying to do his own thing. The three of you ended up forming Audioslave with their friend from Soundgarden. And then you decided to do the solo thing.
That's right.
Too. Called the
Nightwatchman.
Which is if you haven't heard this, he's essentially, not playing the role of folk singer. You are essentially it's folk music coming from this hard rocking great guitarist on an acoustic guitar, with very moving songs that are profound in their lyrics, and a lot of it is about what's going on in the world and all that. But it's if you have a chance to hear it, it's listen under the Nightwatchman. But and then this thing with Bruce, you've been on tour with him this year. What the hell was that about?
Yeah.
I mean, Rage is not Springsteen.
No. I'm not a casual Bruce Springsteen fan. I've been a big Bruce Springsteen fan for a long time. Then he and I were friends for about 8 years before we ever played together, and he just asked me up. We found ourselves in the same studio one day, and he said, "Tommy, you should come up and play with us sometime." And I thought, well, I'm going to go home and look at the schedule right now and see when you come. I just called him up, and he asked me down. He said, "What do you think we should play?" And Rage Against the Machine actually done a cover of his. Bruce Springsteen has an acoustic ballad, like a minor key folk ballad called "The Ghost of Tom Joad." Rage had done a Rage Against the Machine version of that song, a Rageized version of it in 1997. So I suggested we do something like that. The arrangement was entirely his, the one that we performed that night, and it went great. It was my first time singing with an electric guitar in my hands. I had done the folk thing for some time, and it made me realize I could maybe meld those two worlds, and it was a very, very special moment. I'm never nervous on stage. I haven't been nervous on stage since maybe my high school band, and feel pretty comfortable and confident when I have a guitar in my hands. But I was going to be singing with Bruce Springsteen, one of my favorite artists of all time, and so Bruce said, the show sound checks at 5. I'll get there at 4:30. You come on at 5. So I'm downstairs in catering by myself, listening to the band playing the song. Now, of course, the last 24 hours I've been practicing every possible incarnation of Ghost of Tom Joad, so that when I'm on stage with my idol, I'm going to be doing it well. But I hear from downstage, under the stage, that he's changed the key of the song and raised it about 8 steps. Now, you can tell from my rich milk chocolate baritone that I'm not going to be, singing tenor in the opera. And so now I'm confident that it is out of my range, and that now the chords are different. And I've got 90 seconds before I'm going to go up there to play with the E Street Band, and it's a completely different composition than what I've been playing. So I go up there and with some trepidation, and he's like, "We're doing it in this key." I'm like, "Yeah, I heard downstairs." And it's not going very well. I'm not playing it particularly well. I'm not singing it particularly well. Little Steven's very helpful. They're trying to coach me through it, and this was going to be the greatest night of my life, and now it's already a horrendous disaster. But Bruce Springsteen is not called the boss for nothing. He puts he puts his hand on my shoulder, looks me in, and says, "We're going to do it in this key. It's going to be great." And that became a self-fulfilling prophecy. It was I just stopped worrying about it, sang it in that key. It went great. We've done it 100 times since. And then, of course, over the course of the last 18 months, I've been playing with him in the E Street Band. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And if you get tired of that, it's a job any of us would be willing to take your place to do.
Well, let's talk for a second about these people have been tricked into thinking we're going to be talking a little bit about music and film.
Oh, right. So yeah. We have to make these panel discussions in the book sound like school or something. I don't know.
Well, let's at least briefly touch on it, because I have so as a filmmaker, what is the importance of music and film for your movies?
It's very important. Yeah. In fact, while we're shooting, I usually put together a couple of mixtapes. And back in the old days, it was cassettes. Then it went to DVD. CD. And I would play the music that I would want the crew to listen to as we're driving to whatever we're going to do. And sometimes it's kind of a harried thing that we're doing, And so I play music in the car, and sometimes even on where we're shooting, just to get everybody in that. Sometimes it's energetic, and sometimes it's somber and whatever. And but I think it's very important in the in especially a documentary. With Roger and me, I had no money, so basically I just put in the songs I liked, and I didn't get permission from most of the people because I didn't know how to reach them. And I didn't have any money to pay them anyways. But I did send a letter out to everybody I was going to use, and I did get. I got a letter back from Springsteen's people, and from the Beach Boys, and from Bruce Hornsby, and they all gave me permission with no money to use their songs. And so when Warner Brothers then bought the movie, then they had to go get permission from everybody, because you had to do it. It's a real deal now, and they paid them. But I think the first thing I did was using this Beach Boys song, because there's a guy in Roger and Me talking about going crazy on the assembly line one night. He goes out into his car and he's having a panic attack and turns the radio on, and there's "Wouldn't it be nice if we," and it just completely, he melted down at that, and he tells that story, and then I just kick right into the song with all these tracking shots of Flint in total chaos and disrepair, and of course the movie now, Flint looks great, because that was 1989, and we'd lost 30,000 jobs, but there were still 50,000 GM jobs in Flint. Now there's, I think, 3,000 or 4,000. So you can imagine what Flint looks like. But I instantly saw the importance of this, and in having just the right tone, not hitting it on the head too hard, but not being so subtle because I'm so cool. And as long as I get it, that's all that matters. I don't have that attitude with filmmaking. But I'll tell you, when I go to see a movie, the opening song, if there's an opening song over the credits or whatever in the beginning of the movie, if that song sucks, if that's the wrong song, I know the movie's going to suck. 9 times out of 10, because I figure if the filmmaker hasn't got the very, very first thing, like your first impression, it's your first date, it's your first day on the job. If your first day on the job, you show up an hour late, what does that look like? You know, I mean, actually, your first day on the job, you're putting your absolute best face and foot forward, right? And if somebody messes up the music or they have a lousy title sequence or whatever, I can't tell you how many times I've just gone, oh boy, this is going to be bad. And then, of course, 20, 30 minutes into it, it is bad. Now, sometimes I'm wrong. I mean, that's always not always the case. But it is a real talent, to be able to figure out this. And I have help from my friends and then my buddy, Jeff Gibbs, who we went to high school together. And he's a musician. And then he started helping me compose the score, an actual original score to films like Fahrenheit and Capitalism, a Love Story. And so there's like score music in there. And he's a genius in and of his own right. When I decided not to, in Fahrenheit 9/11, to not show the thing that you've seen 1,000 million times over, the planes going in the towers, but just let the audience sit there for a minute and a half in black and just hear the sounds, because the audio to me was far more chilling than you're sort of numb to the picture because you see the picture so much. And then Jeff just had this idea of just hitting this one piano key, and just it's amazing how one note, one key, can be so evocative, so emotional, and so this has always been a very important thing to me, and but it's also very expensive if you want to use, you know, I mean, rage music has been in Transformers and other things that look like heavy metal.
Yes.
Heavy metal movies, you know. You know, and actually your wife, Denise, works, or spent every time, as long as I've known her, working at one of the studios in the area of basically obtaining the music rights and figuring out what the soundtrack should be and all of that. And it's quite a whole process that people here don't see. But I think it's very, very important. And I think it's also really good to know when not to use music and to leave it alone and just let it sit there. And so I enjoy that part of it, though. I don't know.
I think it's very difficult to get it right, you know, because a lot of times it's art and commerce collide. And, for example, let me make it very clear, there's been no Rage Against the Machine songs in a Transformers movie. That's not the case.
What's the one I'm thinking of? Help me out.
There's a fantastic use of it in the movie The Matrix. 1 and 2, they're pretty great.
I didn't mean The Matrix. Don't get mad at me.
Which Transformers
I would never
movie was
put Transformers.
Let me tell you. I fell asleep on. I scored some of Iron Man.
You scored some of Iron Man. Okay,
Iron
all
Man
right.
1 and 2.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But I mean, where art and commerce collide, I've got this.
Iron Man 1 is great.
Yeah.
Thank you. The Matrix is. I've seen that like 17 times.
Yeah.
I think I've seen it 17 times. It could have been 27 or 37.
Or we may have just been sitting here, though.
We may have been here the whole time.
Yeah.
Talking to Traverse City.
Where art and commerce collide, especially with the big movies, is that in order to promote a film like the Transformers, they'll want a new hit song from Linkin Park or Rihanna or whatever, right. and so they'll go fishing around for a big. It almost is secondary what the song is, or if it's going to be an Oscar movie, they want the one that's written by, I forget what's the guy. There's one guy who has like 33 Oscars. The guy who wrote Short People.
Randy Newman.
They need a Randy Newman song for that, which may not fit the film fantastically, but it's you need to stamp it with a big hit single to help drive, and that's sometimes I think pretty horrible. But with both Rage and Audioslave, we've had the most successful artistic use of a Rage song in movies is the first Matrix movie, where the movie ends with the song "Wake Up." And I think that one of the for me, what feels very successful artistically is I did a song for Michael's movie Sicko, a Nightwatchman song for that, and that one felt like it fit the.
Yeah, he wrote it. He called me up, and we're done. We're done with the film. Basically, we're done editing it, and we're getting ready to head toward the mix. And he said, "I've written a song for you for the movie." I said, "Like an original song?" Yeah. I said, "Oh my God!" I was so moved by that. It was such a generous thing, and we kind of ripped up the end credits to put this in, but it was the second song because I had already had Cat Stevens there because it related to the last scene, and I was really upset when they pulled him off that plane. He was flying from London to New York. And when they heard that Cat Stevens, Yusuf Islam, was on the plane, they landed it in Nova Scotia.
Was he flying for you? Was he flying for?
No, he was just on his own, coming to the United States post 9/11.
Yeah.
But he's Yusuf Islam or whatever his name is, and then they hauled him off the plane. They would not let him enter the United States of America. Mm-hmm. Cat Stevens, I was just peace train.
Yeah,
I'm like.
Yeah.
I was so upset about that, and then he was a pariah, and then nobody would, and I'm putting him in this movie somewhere. We're going to figure out a place for him. You're not going to tell people they can't come here. Mm-hmm. Their crime is what? He changed his name he became a Muslim. I mean, it was just outrageous. But if you have a chance to listen to Tom's song in this movie, it's quite haunting and very, very powerful. And thank you for doing that.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Should we question now, or what do you think?
I think we should just, what time is it getting to be here? 10:20. Let's take 5, let's get the microphones ready, but let's take 5 minutes and talk about the news. What's going on these days. We're a little bit removed, the film festival this year, from, every year we are, because you're kind of in an idyllic paradise in a way here in Traverse City and northern Michigan and the Lake Michigan and everything. But out there in the rest of the world, there's some pretty heavy stuff going on right now, mainly with Gaza and this absolutely incredible barrage of rockets and attacks. And what the Israelis now have, they bombed hospitals and they've bombed schools and they've killed, I don't know what the latest, yesterday the body count was over 1,200 dead. And it's like, are we still doing this? Is this still going on? Can't we find a better way to resolve this? I mean, this is absolute craziness. And of course, the Israelis would say, well, they're firing rockets at us and all this. But which of course, if you'd noticed before the invasion, the Hamas didn't hit anything. They're like the gang that couldn't shoot straight.
Right.
And I sent out a tweet that said memo. It said memo from Industrial Light and Magic to Hamas. Quit providing mediocre special effects for the other guy's movie. Because they just used that. I mean, the Israelis were like, the government. I mean, they were like, we can, because they were trying. First, they tried to lie to the people that those 3 kids, those Israeli kids that were kidnapped and killed, were it was by Hamas. And of course, now the Israeli government has admitted that they didn't tell the truth, and they were not killed by Hamas, and it wasn't really a kidnapping. And the Israelis knew the whole story of how these kids died for a week or two. And yet they kept putting out there that they were kidnapped and they were held and tortured and all this stuff. Anyways, it's just a big kerfuffle of a mess, and it seems like I don't know if you and I have ever talked about this issue.
Well, to me, what the most distressing part, and I think that while the politics are complicated, the one moral issue that is not, that I find very distressing, it was the same a few years ago when the torture debate. There was a debate about whether torture was okay, like it entered whether medieval Spanish Inquisition style torture was now okay. It's like now there's debate about when it's okay to kill children, and that is something that is openly well, we've killed children, but we've killed children, and under these circumstances, well, they're human shields, they're firing like. it is never okay. You are, whether you are Hamas, whether you are Israel, whether you or whether you're me, if you are killing children, you are in the wrong by definition. That's my take. That's my take. You know, and while the politics are prickly and everyone bears grudges, if you start with, we're not going to kill children and work backwards from there, you're going to be able to come to a more humane conclusion than the other way around, where your politics come first and the children are the collateral damage.
It would seem like Obama would be the perfect president to try and broker something here, because he's very well respected in the Arab world. Because he is a Muslim.
Yeah, as a Muslim. I was going to say as a Muslim. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And
as a Hamas lieutenant, you'd think that he'd have more sway.
Exactly. Right. You know, and the fact that he showed up late on 9/11 to fly the fifth plane.
Yeah. With his Kenyan passport, you'd think that he would be able to.
Actually, you only have to turn on WTCM at noon or 3 o'clock and listen to Rush, and for more of this kind of. It's like they have anything they can come up with to put on Obama. It's the funniest thing. But it would seem like between that relationship and the fact that we're the bank for Israel, that we fund a lot of this, that we would have some kind of control or power or ability at least to say, whoa.
Yeah.
Come on,
that's
stop.
Clearly not the case. I mean,
yeah,
it's clearly not the case.
Well, why is that though? Is it because President Obama? Is it? I assume. I don't know if you did vote for him. Maybe you didn't.
One of the videos we made after the Sleeping on the Fire was that I've always believed that. While I'm not going to discourage anyone from voting, and while there is a difference between candidates that sometimes can make the difference, whether, like, I think if we had had a different president, we might be at war with Syria right now, you know?
Right.
Like that, and there are very important things with regards to women's rights, with regards to unions, but at the core of it, if voting really made a difference in the way to the kind of world that you and I fight for in our art, they would make it illegal. You know, and so as we've seen with this administration, I think that it is. I'm not sure how many Obama supporters there are here in Traverse City or this thing, but who voted for him that's not disappointed, right? I mean, yeah.
Right. I think that's
raise your hands. I mean, seriously, like it's
right. Yeah, no, I agree. It's and that makes the level of disappointment even greater, because there was so much hope that we would be further down the road than we are now.
But I think the underlying lesson is that, and it is unlikely in our lifetimes that we will have another presidential candidate that will inspire that kind of hope of a new way of there being U.S. government, a new way of treating the rest of the world, all of which were horrendous disappointments. But to me, the lesson in that is, what I've always fought for in my art is change does not come from the top, it comes from the bottom. And it's peoples whose names you do not read about in history books. They're the ones that made the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement, the environmental movement. Those are the people that change the lever of history in the right direction. So you can't, like, every 4 years cast your ballot into the void and hope for the best that some an Obama or a Hillary or whoever, three down the line is going to wave a magic wand and create the kind of world that you want. You have to fight for the kind of world you want with your friends. That's the way. And use every part. Thing is, what you have to realize is that you are not bystanders to history. You're agents of history. And you have your hand on the wheel of history. Whether you choose to exert control and try to turn it this way or that, that's up to you. You can stand on the sidelines and let somebody else, you can let the Koch brothers do it. But you do have your hand on the wheel of history, and it's people just like you in this room that have any progressive, radical, or revolutionary change that has ever happened in this country, it's because of people just like you. It's not because of Obamas, it's not because of Supreme Courts. Those people may react to pressure, but the people who change it and make the kind of history that we sing about, play about, and make movies about, it's people just like you. And so that's key lesson is that you're not bystanders, and you're actors in history. So,
But one of the things that people, like, they always ask me, well, yes, I agree, but what can I do? What can I do? I mean, it's like a constant question. Yeah. What should I do? It feels like it doesn't matter, which is, of course, very important for those in power to have you feeling like you don't matter, and you can't do anything to paralyze you.
Well, man, I can tell you, that I think is. It is. I grew up in a small town in Illinois where the prospects were, if everything went super great, you went to U of I and you married a nice girl and you came home and you got a home. But I had ideas about, there was a lot wrong in the world, there was a lot wrong in my hometown, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. For me, it was bands like The Clash and Public Enemy that made me think that there were people that thought the same way that I did beyond the borders of this small town. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to do the thing I can do. Like, I'm interested in radical politics, and I can play pretty good guitar. So I'm going to find some way to do that and see what happens. What did you do? You made movies that have changed the world. You know what I mean? Like, you used your intellect, your talent, your power. I've read the book. And everyone has within them the ability to have their hand on that wheel of history. And it's not. I think it's. Any time you spend thinking, what can I do, you're wasting time rather than doing it, And whether it's volunteering at the local soup kitchen or whether it's drafting, a plan to become the next attorney general and set shit straight, it's within you. That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, and these politicians, even locally, if you put this pressure on them, it's amazing how they will change. And in this case, in Traverse City here, there are these little issues that kind of are a distraction. They are constantly coming up. I remember when I first moved here, there was a big fight over the city government had designed a bumper sticker for the city of Traverse City, and it was a rainbow. And of course, the righties in town thought this was a gay people come to Traverse City thing, and it didn't get any better when some polling, I don't know what it was, they released these statistics that said that next to Ann Arbor, per capita, Traverse City area had the largest number of gay people, and which was shocking.
And this rainbow bumper sticker certainly wasn't going to help.
No,
right? Yeah,
no, it certainly dovetailed with
it's
it.
like a Batman beacon.
Exactly. Come to Traverse City, gay and lesbian people.
Downtown's going to be overrun with gay commerce, perhaps.
And then I showed up. Yeah.
Well, I mean, one interesting thing here is that liberal pinko Michael Moore taught conservative downtown Traverse City businesses how to make money by staying open later. Right? This is you. Like, I heard. In my short stay in Traverse City, this is one of the things I learned, that like the downtown used to close at 5, and and Michael is
4.
And now they're all enjoying their second jet skis.
It's a supreme irony, though, isn't it, that for someone who doesn't really believe in capitalism as an organizing idea. It's the film festival in the state and the Bijou and all that. Everybody knows this. But it is kind of funny. I think it is funny. And the Downtown Businessman's Association, I don't know what it's called, but they're mostly Republicans. 3 or 4 years ago, they gave me their Man of the Year award. Yeah. and when there was a dinner, and it's like all these Republicans hugging me and shaking me. Well, they don't hug. It's more like
it's a bro pat.
Yeah, it's a bro pat. It's a bro pat.
It's a golf course bro pat.
Right. But it was just, I just went home with this plaque, and it was just like,
that's awesome.
This is so weird, but cool.
Well, let me say, they're going to change their mind about the gays too. As soon as they start spending that rainbow money in downtown here, they'll be handing out awards right and left.
No, in fact, I think the next election they had the first openly gay city commissioner elected, and because I generally think people are good. Most people, that right will prevail. Justice will. It takes a long time sometimes, but generally, at the end of the road, the survivors are not Bull Connor. They're not. Mr. Adolf. They're not, the bad guys eventually lose. And so I think what you said here is very true, and I think that people should really, I'll just take 30 seconds here to make my case to local people here that I think the two biggest issues in this area, because we still have double-digit unemployment here and throughout the state, is we need jobs, middle-class jobs. And if I were mayor of the city, there's a number of wealthy former auto executives and, different industry people that have beautiful homes here and all that. And I would go to them and say, these people that have these businesses and industry and whatever, will you be, for $1 a year, will you become one of my jobs ambassadors? And we will, if you can pay for it, or we'll send you wherever you need to go around the world to bring jobs to Traverse City, and have this be a real effort. They have to be middle-class jobs, not minimum wage jobs. They have to be middle-class jobs so you can raise a family, kids can go to college, the whole deal. American dream. And so that's one thing I would do. And not that I'm not running for office here, but and the other thing would be the affordable housing. And I've said this since day one of the first festival. I am going to do my best to prevent the Aspenization of Traverse City, where when I went to the Aspen Film Festival, and the people who work, in the restaurant or the hotel or whatever, nobody lives in Aspen who's a worker. They have to live over the mountain, 25, 30 miles away. And if by creating this festival and downtown coming alive and everything we've done here, this ripple effect that it's had, if the effect of that is to housing prices now are, they're unaffordable to a working person, and everything starts to be, then and you have to live in Kalkaska, a place that's away from here, to work. You work here, then this film festival has done a huge disservice to the people of the area. And so it's I don't necessarily have the answer for this, but I fight against it whenever I can, and try to keep the festival affordable. And now we have a free venue, a theater where you can see, no matter what your income is, you can see movies all day long at the festival. You don't have to spend a dime. But I worry about this. And those of you locally, you know what I'm talking about, right? If you have a house in Traverse City, things are quite good right now, which is good. That's great. But on the other hand, if a teacher is moving here to teach in the fall, I don't know with the teaching salary here if they can afford a home in what's called the central neighborhood that surrounds the elementary school. That's not a good thing. Teachers should be able to live in something that's named after their school. So, anyways, but if people will get involved, and if people will let the city commission know this is a priority, then I think I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen so many times. And I've seen it happen not only in just making my movies, because a lot of times now they know if I'm coming, whoever's doing something wrong in that town will change before we can film it. And in Sicko, actually,
just the specter of Michael.
Well, in Sicko, I filmed the scene where this family, their daughter was essentially deaf, and there's now these cochlear implants that can essentially give hearing, and United Healthcare or Cigna or whatever, one of the big ones, said that they would only pay for one ear. This movie, if you haven't seen the movie, it's a movie not about people who don't have health insurance. It's a movie about people who do have health insurance, and you sit here thinking, oh yes, I have health insurance. If anything happens, I'll be fine. No, from the second if you get sick, they are going to try and figure out a way not to pay the bill, or pay half of it, or whatever. And so they told her, and the parents said, "Why? What do you mean one ear?" And they said, "We only need one ear to hear. I can hear everything right now." And they were so upset. and they heard I was making this movie. They didn't contact me. They called like a week later, the health insurance company, to say, we've been contacted by Michael Moore, and he's coming here next week to film us, and we want to tell the one ear story.
Yeah.
And they,
let me speak with my supervisor. I'll be right back. Hold on one second.
Exactly. And the next day they weren't home, but they left the message. Cigna left the message on their answering machine, which we then filmed, and they kept the tape. Yeah. Yes, this is Bob from Cigna Health Insurance. Listen, we've worked it out here, and we can do both ears. Yeah. And so since then.
So you're encouraging people to basically use your name in vain to try to
Yes. When Sicko came out, I said to people, everyone has blanket permission to say that I'm going to be filming you next week. For anything. Yeah. And then I thought, we should make a film about this. Yeah. I had a title for it, but it was something like, Here Comes Mike or whatever. But the whole film, I'm just sitting in my lazy boy at home watching Sports Center on ESPN or whatever. And
that could go on some you could be like some high school kid would be like, he can text the prom queen. Mike's making a movie about prom queens who don't date geeks.
Right, and then
unless you want to really look bad,
but the
dance is this Saturday night,
right? And to help that kid, my crew would actually show up because it has to look like I'm in town.
That's right. Yeah.
With the crew, and maybe you need a gate at your railroad crossing. It could be the smallest thing or whatever, or the prom. And I thought, we would just film, see how many things we could get done in 90 minutes in this movie to just make it a little better.
Without you lifting a finger.
Without me having to do a fucking thing. Anyway, so I don't know if I should have told this idea out loud, but don't tell anybody. Okay, all right, good. Anyway, so, why don't we open it up to some questions and comments, and the man with the striped shirt right here has got the first one, and here he goes.
Oh, thank you. This is mostly for Tom, but I'm sure you could chime in as well. With the whole digitization of everything, I'm talking anything to do with media, so what you guys produce. Everything's getting digital, and everything is getting kind of funneled or maybe even chokeholded into subscription services, which I don't know if you guys really get affected by that, but the amateur filmmaker, the amateur musician, artist, any graphic design, anything like that, it's always, when it comes to the subscription services, they get nothing, just nothing. I don't know if you guys really are hurt by that or not, but I guess as filmmakers and artists and musicians, how do you feel about the digitization of almost every consumption medium, be it a smartphone and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I can talk about the music part. We were at a backyard barbecue yesterday. I was talking to a couple of high school seniors and asking them about the music they liked and how they got it, and neither one of them had ever paid for one song of music ones in their lives. They're 17 years old. They just like when I was a kid, you paid for music and water was free. And now it's the reverse, and it's it's devastating for up and coming musicians for sure, because there's no, I have a feeling like certain with rock and roll that there's going to be a handful of pop stars that the Eminems and Rihannas who are still going to sell. It used to be 10 million records each time out. Now it's down to 1 million each time out, but they're going to have careers like that. But I think for a lot of rock musicians, it's going to become kind of like jazz is, where it's going to be something that is done and something that is great, something that you may enjoy seeing, but it's not going to buy, 3 houses on the lake anymore. How do I feel about that? In the realm of music, it's 96% the fault of the record companies, who when the world of digital began creeping, they had been raping fans and bands by charging these CDs that they were printing for 20 cents a piece. They were charging $19.99 for, and they were prosecuting people who were, making cassette tapes from it or whatever, rather than embracing this new medium and finding a way into the future that was going to be good for artists, was going to be good for record companies, was going to be good for fans, rather than like stonewalling and saying like this is an evil. And it's totally turned on them. None of them have jobs anymore, and they've taken the commoditization of that art has gone away. On the one hand, it does make it a more democratic medium in a way, which is not great for the paying the mortgage, but now you, me, Metallica, and the front, we can all have the same Facebook page, we can all have the same Twitter account. Our art can go out into the world without the funnel of a major label corporation deciding, you're blessed and you're unholy. But it's certainly from a commercial point of view, I think it'd be very, very difficult to build. There will be no more U2s. Like you can in the last 10 years name rock bands that are festival headline. I mean, there's maybe. Off the top of my head, I can think of Arcade Fire and maybe The Killers. There's like 3 or 4 in the last 10 years, whereas it used to be on a yearly basis. There'd be 25 new platinum acts, and so it's hard for me to feel bitter about it because I think it's the record industry's own fault. I don't have an opinion about the world of film because I don't really understand how it affects them.
Yeah, I think it's love and hate. The love part is, as he said, it's anybody now can make a movie. Anybody can record a song. You don't need to be wealthy to do that. I had a very difficult time making Roger and Me because there was only film then. I shot it on 16mm film, and 10 minutes of every 10 minutes I shot, it cost me $400. 10 minutes on your iPhone, what's that cost you to shoot? 0, right? And I was pretty broke, so it was really, really, really hard. And I thought at the time, and the camera costs $250,000, and who could afford to do this, really? And the kids that went to film school or had money and whatever. So I like that part of it. The bad part of that, too, though, is that everybody can make a film, and everybody shouldn't make a film because it's a lot of crap out there, and it's become harder to sift through the swamp of people who think they're filmmakers or musicians or whatever. So that's the good and the bad of that. As far as for film, I mean, look, I don't believe in the copyright laws as they exist. I think the way the founding fathers set up the copyright laws, I thought was very good. It was very smart. It was like 7 years, and then maybe you could get a 7-year extension. And as you know, with your albums, you're going to sell 99% of your albums in those first 7 to 14 years. And then it was anybody's. And because they thought it was important that art and information should be as accessible as possible to people. Yes, the artist should get their money, but then we're less of a society if we're not able to share things. I mean, we have this movie here about Aaron Swartz who thought the MIT library should be open to the public because it has all this research in there that nobody else can get, and it might trigger an idea in somebody else's head about who's trying to find the cure for this or that. We have stunted so many things because of the digital age that we're not discovering things as much anymore because it's either hoarded or the corporate control of this is so intense now because they have figured out how digital can benefit them. But I believe in sharing. I mean, when I made a cassette tape, say of your album in 1993, and shared it with somebody, I was not breaking the law. And if you bought my book last year, whatever, and liked it, and you wanted your brother to read it, you could give it to him. Now I could say you've just cost me $25. I don't get the $25, but I probably get $4 a book. I could say that, but actually I'm happy that you've given it to him because I think if he likes it, I've got a new fan, and he will buy the next book or whatever. And I felt the same way about music. I wouldn't have known about The Clash had not somebody stolen it by putting it on a cassette tape and given it to me. What did that result in? Me buying Clash albums, me going to Clash concerts, and becoming a big fan. And they made money from that. At the beginning, it looks like it's not going to make money. I think it's forced what you do into a place where the real money is in touring, and that's where where you used to get it from the albums. But I agree with you. The record companies completely screwed this up. They didn't know what they were going after, the wrong thing, and then it was too late. Wow, it was just they got wiped out. You're right. I mean, they are wiped out. And now film hasn't had that same thing because people still like to go to the movies. And they like to go sit in the theater and be with people, so that is sort of But when a kid says 17-year-old says they've downloaded my movie, I don't know how you feel when you hear that, but I kind of like it.
I'm fine with them. It's like I don't want to be like old man Grumpus going, "You kids better buy my buy my CD."
Cost me my $4 here. I think because here's the thing too, that 17-year-old will be 27 and then 37, and they're going to have a different lifestyle. They're going to have hopefully a job, and they will maybe buy a ticket and go see my movie instead of watching it on their iPhone. So I think in the long term, if I build a fan base that, I think that and again look at the followers that you have, the band has, you have on Twitter. I've got almost a couple million people now on Twitter, and wow, I mean, I can talk to them without having to go through the studio, New York Times, whatever. I could just talk to 2 million people right now, and they'll send it to 10 or 100 other people, and suddenly this thing I've sent out is now in the hands of 20 million or 200 million around the world. That is very cool. That part of it's very cool. And it's got to be scary to those in charge because we can actually organize now amongst ourselves. Before the internet, you'd have to send a letter to the editor, I guess, if you wanted to, and then they had hope that they publish it. Anyways, who's next? Yes.
I wanted to ask about the use of your Audioslave song "Shadow in the Sun" in the movie Collateral.
You mean Transformers?
Just if there was a story there, I think it's one of the coolest songs in a movie. And
Oh, right on. Yeah, thanks. Michael Mann was a fan of Audioslave, the director of Collateral, and he reached out, and we were the band. We were fans of his work. We were happy to loan that to him, and I think that is a very good use. I actually did some film scoring on that as well, and it's an interesting. I'm not a film score. I like to do sort of like the rock part of the film score, and that's the one thing that it's the one element of my work which I would say that I'm sometimes happy to do. But one of the reasons why I got into rock and roll is because I don't like to have a boss of any kind. And when you're doing film score, like the director will sit next to you and go, "Make that note sound more sad." And you're like, I don't know. I don't know what that means. And you send back multiple revisions. I forget, there was one I did scored for a movie. I don't think I actually saw the whole thing at the end of the day, but it was A-Team. I did something like they can't license a Rage or an Audioslave song, so it was going to be too expensive for them. But they want 2.5 minutes of Morellian rock for this scene, and so I spent a good deal of time meticulously cutting it to the scene, and they're like, "Oh, this is fantastic," except we wanted to make it sound a little more like it wasn't recorded in a studio. Okay, and I've learned enough when directors say that you just nod and smile, and you turn up the drums and put a little distortion on the bass and go, "That's it, that's it." And so when I did finally see the movie at the end of the day, and this scene which we had spent hours talking about, getting it just right for the character does this, and it's mysterious here, and it's powerful there. They had used the entire 2.5 minutes in a different part of the film. They just slapped it over there. And they were very happy with it. I was like, all right, art.
Who's next here? Where's the microphone at? This young person right down in the front here in the red T-shirt here. Yes.
Hi. Do you guys want like movies and music to stay the way they are now, or do you want them to change over the course of decades to come?
I would, as music and movies have changed, I would imagine they would continue to do so. And my hope would be that someone like you, young man, will be making music or movies that will be made in different ways than we've made them before. And I look forward to seeing what that is. Yeah.
I agree with that.
And I like your bro's shirt there. That's a funny shirt, dude. Welcome to the dork side.
I think as much as possible, your generation and as you grow older, try to see movies in theaters. It's a whole different experience. I'm sure you already know that. And see it with other people. Don't make it a singular thing that you do alone, you know, on your iPhone or your computer screen or whatever. So because we make these to be shown on a really big screen and in pitch dark, and with other people, especially if it's a comedy with other people, you know. So I think that will always stay the same. I don't think restaurants will go out of business. I think people will still go out to eat, even though they have a kitchen. There's no need to go out and eat somewhere else, right? But people like to be with other people. And you can watch your film on your iPhone if you want, but I think it might be a nicer experience, you know, if you do it in a theater. But I really want to hear young voices, and I think just thinking about what you said about the record company, the one thing that, and you know who the good record producers and record executives were, especially in the old days, they were like curators. They would find the Dylan and the Springsteen and the whatever. And I hope that we get back to that, both with music and with film, that the so-called curators. Now, I'm not talking about the money people now that want to make these things are commodities to sell, but the people who really love this stuff and know what the good stuff is and what they think you might like. I think we still need that. I want that, actually. I do that for you here at the festival. You know, Deb and I watch 500 movies during the year. I am saving you from the other, 400 that you don't. My eyes bleed for you, and so by the time we get here, I've curated what I think will be a good festival with a good mix of films. Some stuff the genres I don't particularly care for, but I know that they're nailing it in that genre. I know the people who love that, who love zombie beavers, are going to love that movie. So, and I think it would be nice if that still existed. Doesn't exist at all in music, and less in film, because even when I started, there were the Miramax and there were all these indie studios that helped. I remember my first year with Roger and me, the same year was Do the Right Thing, Sex, Lies, and Videotape, Gus Van Zant's first big film, Drugstore Cowboy, Oliver Stone did Born on the 4th of July. I mean, that was just that one year, and there's a whole bunch of others that year. But there were people at studios who loved the movies and just didn't see it as a way to make money, and they were willing to take these risks that they don't seem to be willing to take now. So your generation is going to have to come up with probably some new ways to do this, and I'm very hopeful, because your generation will never give a rat's ass about a rainbow on a bumper sticker again. So.
I have one comment and then a question. The comment is just to reinforce what you said about seeing movies with other people, that they were made for that. And I also would just like to add that it also makes a difference what audience you see a movie with, because we find in a very conservative community that seeing it with certain kinds of audiences, it just is not as enjoyable as seeing it with like-minded people.
Are you referring to a specific? Do you have a film in mind that would apply to?
A lot of the independent movies and some of the documentaries. I mean, we just find that if people are enjoying the politics of the movie with our politics.
Where do you live?
We live in South Bend, Indiana.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen over the years. My favorite fan mail is it always begins with a sentence. I used to be a Republican, and because again, do believe most people have a conscience, and most people do know right from wrong, and have a heart. If they're just exposed to a little something different, some of them will come along. And,
eventually.
and that's why those films need to be in the South Bends and the Holland, Michigans, and
Right.
Places like that. Not just preaching to the choir, not just in Ann Arbor or whatever.
Right, right.
So
My question is, we've noticed that some of the independent movies, what used to be like Fox and some of the large distributors are now being bought up by other distributors, and that just like the independent bookstores, that the independent movies that used to be distributed by large studios, I guess the divisions of the large studios are now downsizing or getting fewer and fewer, and I wondered if you'd comment on that.
well, yeah, it's a problem, right? There were, like I said, there used to be a lot of independent studios. New Line is gone. A whole bunch of those studios are gone. In fact, the studio that released Capitalism: A Love Story, it was just 5 years ago. That's gone. That was again an indie studio. And the studio that released Bowling for Columbine is gone. It's called United Artists. It's tried to come back a couple times, but that's a company that started by Charlie Chaplin and Mary Pickford. So yeah, it's a problem. I think people are going to have to devise new ways to get film out there. I mean, I've got one idea that I mentioned the other night on opening night that I'm going to put the money up for, which is to do like the opera does, where it's beamed in from New York, and you get to be in Lincoln Center, sitting in the State Theater live. And so I'm going to curate a monthly, or hopefully then weekly, thing called Mike's Movie Night across the country in 300 theaters, and we'll beam it from the State Theater. These films I've chosen, films that people can't see in these other towns, but are just genius films, and I'll have the director via satellite or Skype or whatever, and we'll do a Q&A live with people in the 300 theaters. We'll be able to text or tweet from their seats questions to the director. And I've mentioned this to some other filmmakers and famous actors, and they want to get in on this, and so they'll co-host it with me sometimes, or they'll do it. But I think if I could pull this off, I think this would be a way to really help get these films out there to a wider audience.
That's a good idea.
Yes, who's next? We've got time for maybe 2 or 3 more, and we're out of here. Yes. Go ahead. Yes. Man in the green or gray shirt.
Thank you.
Green-gray.
First off, it's an honor to say hello to both of you. I grew up just outside of Flint, in Flushing, and as a middle schooler, movies from Michael Moore or music from Rage Against the Machine was often my source of alternative news in a way. Things you didn't see in the newspaper, things you didn't see on TV. And now, as I've grown older, I have a job, I'm busy, I've kind of drifted away from that, and kind of along with information on the internet, it's often hard to find sources of good alternative information of things happening in the world, like the situation in Gaza. Finding information that's accurate, but kind of alternative views. So I was just curious if you guys have suggestions for places to find good information on alternative topics, basically.
Well, I have 2 toddlers, a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old, so I'm so busy chasing their asses around. When I need to find out what's going on in the news, I just call up Mike and say, Mike, what's going on in the news? To go to the source.
It gets better. You'll get out of the house pretty soon. Read The Guardian. Guardian has the U.S. edition now. You're going to get probably the best reporting on things like Gaza from the Guardian of London. They're online. I think they're a very good source of daily, what we still call print journalism. And then there's so many really good websites. If you, you can go and you can look at I post a lot of the stuff, but everything from Fire Dog Lake to Think Progress to, there's lots of sites that collate the good stories that you might miss because you don't get that paper or whatever. And of course, then there's The Nation and magazines that are good sources too. But there's Stephen Colbert. It's just all the crap in the world. He just makes sees the spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down. And I hope he gets to keep it up when he takes Letterman's position. I hope that we still get a lot of that, what he does, because it's really brilliant satire. And I think I think humor is a great way to get information, and it's not employed very much anymore. But 100 years ago, and in the days of Mark Twain and whatever, satire and humor was used to devastating effect. But it doesn't. You don't get that much anymore. But so anything that's funny, like Funny or Die will have some good things or whatever. I think there's things you can learn from those kinds of shows and websites. So I don't know if that's helpful at all, but everybody should be reading The Guardian. I think that's your best daily source.
This young lady's had her hand up for a while, right here.
Good morning. My name's Katie. I'm from Detroit. I wrote down my question. A huge moment for me was when two of my passions, which are movies and rock music combined, and Trent Reznor won an Oscar for The Social Network, and then he did Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and he has another one coming out. Other artists, Karen O, she did Where the Wild Things Are, and Eddie Vedder did Into the Wild. You did Iron Man 2. So I was wondering what your opinion was on the crossover with rock musicians and film scores, and if you had a favorite. Thank you.
Well, the ones you mentioned have been very successful, and I think it's, one of the things you like to, people who are a little ways into their career, you like to branch out and have new challenges, and clearly I think The Social Network, that's fantastic. Like Trent's work on that is really fantastic. That would probably be my favorite one because it's so, it's unexpected, and it seems like it's made from someone who doesn't come from the world of film scoring, where the swells all happen in the right place, and it creates an atmosphere that you feel is different from any other movie ever made, because it's got his artistic sensibility that doesn't come from the world of film, and that would be my favorite.
And while you're watching Social Network, this is the true sign, I think, of doing a great soundtrack is you don't notice it. It's so he laid it in there. It was just kind of there. Now later you go back and you think, wow, yeah, that music was really. But while you're watching, it just was so. And if you and Nine Inch Nails, if you're a fan, this wasn't Nine Inch Nails music. Yeah. So he really dialed it to a different place, and I, I know you're busy with the kids, but I would love to see you do more soundtracks, just because you're so layered yourself, with so many ways that you go from one end of the scale to the other. It would be very interesting to see you. You want to do more of this?
Well, I actually did.
Will you do my next movie?
You might be a better boss than some, but I over the course of the last couple of years, I wrote a graphic novel called Orchid, and I actually did a musical score for the comic book. So each issue has filmic score.
Tell them the name of the comic book. This is really
yeah. I was a few years ago. I had an idea for a story, but I didn't know how to manifest it. I didn't really in my life have time to write the great American novel, 900-page novel. I didn't want to be another Hollywood jackass with a screenplay, right? So I returned to some of my dork roots as a fan of comic books as a kid growing up. And the world of graphic novels has come a long way. If anyone is a fan, but now there's no subject matter, there's no emotional subtlety that cannot be captured in graphic novels. And I wanted to basically tell a story that combined I've always been a fan of like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, these epic fantasy stories. But the one component I always thought that they missed was the unspeakable 5-letter word, which was class. And so Orchid is a story. It's basically a 16-year-old prostitute who becomes the leader of a revolution, the Spartacus of whores. And it's a 12-issue comic, and I scored all of it, and it's a fine thing if you want to check that out through Dark Horse Comics.
The Spartacus of whores.
That's my elevator pitch for the.
I don't know whether to be happy about that or be scared. It's all right.
I was always
Yeah.
I was like in Lord of the Rings, like the idea of Ollie's is to get the princess back on the throne and
Right.
get the king back on the throne and all the vassals. Like I always thought in Lord of the Rings, for example, that those poor orcs and those poor little hobbits maybe in some ways had more in common than the people who were
Right.
who were there.
No, and
overlords.
and this he's referring to right. This is from someone from the lower class.
That's right.
And despised in
Yeah.
the profession.
Lowest rung on the ladder.
Lowest rung on the ladder, and then
Yeah. That's it.
All right, do we have time for one more, or you got a lot of hands?
Yeah,
up here?
this gentleman.
Why don't we
back
do can we do this just very quickly?
Yeah,
I'll try to fit a couple more in, but just we'll be
a
short.
lightning round.
Yes, a lightning round.
Lightning.
Very short.
You had to pick me for the lightning round. Great. The face of American liberalism has been getting decidedly older. Bill Maher.
Okay, time's up. Okay, stop.
This does not sound like a
just
lightning
before
round.
he said
This
my
does not
name.
sound like- This does not sound like a lightning round question, but okay.
All right, go ahead.
Very frank. All of the liberal leaders are getting older, whereas it seems like the conservative movement is managing to get them while they're young, and with the Roberts Court kind of geared up for the next 40 years. I was wondering, as activists, what the two of you have done or are planning to do to marshal the next generation of American liberals so that the movement doesn't die with the current ones.
Well, I'll answer very shortly. I think that what I try to do is rock them senseless, and then and then that hope that the meteor trail of that message is one that carries on. And I'm banking on these two kids over here too.
Yeah,
I think I gotta.
I'm not worried about it. I think this, like I said, the next generation, they don't hate gay people. They're not bigots. They did a poll and found that the majority of 16 to 30-year-olds prefer socialism over capitalism. So I think the kids are all right. So, yes. Bev, yeah.
Couple of quick things. One, big fan of both of you guys. Tom, I'm a composer, and your style has influenced me since high school. Your riffs, your guitar style. I'm a guitarist as well. But super quick question. When you did Iron Man 1 and 2, I know you were collaborating with Ramin Djawadi and John Debney. You were talking about the revisions. That's gotten a lot worse. I know that Tyler Bates on Guardians of the Galaxy, he said recently he had to do 15 times over the work. He had to do the score.
Okay, what's your answer to that? 15
times over. The question is basically, has that gotten better or worse? What's your answer to
I think
that?
it's just project by project, and
Okay.
Especially with those it wasn't 15 times. And often my responsibility will be to provide the rock score. Sometimes I'll receive a symphonic score and play guitar on it. Other times I'll create original guitar work that then they will write, French horn parts too. And with actually both of those, with Ramin especially, it was really easy and smooth going. And the great thing about Ramin is he's the guy that does the Game of Thrones music as well. He's really fantastic. And but he speaks a musical language. So it's not like sort of a director saying, make it sound like the Andes, like no one has any idea what they're talking about. And he's very, very clear when we're discussing something. So
Next, very quickly, yes.
How much does it cost to buy like a Beach Boys song for your movie? You said it was expensive.
How much does it cost to buy Beach Boys?
Oh, what did it cost Warner Brothers?
Yeah.
At that time, probably $200,000. By Bowling for Columbine, by 2002, there had only been like 6 movies where the Beatles heirs or the living Beatles allowed an original recording of the Beatles to be used in a movie. There were only like 5 or 6 of them, and they let me use "Happiness Is a Warm Gun." But we still had to pay the publishing because, as you know, famously, that a lot of the rights were sold first to Michael Jackson and others. So I think we probably paid $500,000 for "Happiness Is a Warm Gun." It's very, very expensive, and you have to really plan for it. So for me to spend that kind of money, it's got to be something that's going to stick with you after you leave the movie.
Right here.
Right, quickly, yes.
Listening to Rage and watching Roger and me in the 90s, they were both pretty, both of you guys are pretty eye-opening, provocative, inspirational stuff. I've listened to quite a bit of your panels, Mike, over the years, but I was just wondering, what were your, Tom, what were your earliest inspirations for your music, your activism, and your said,
Musically for me, it was I grew up a fan of like heavy metal music, but that all tended to be about dragons and wizards and like groupies, and none of that really related to my life in suburban Illinois. So it was groups like The Clash and Public Enemy that I could relate to the lyrical content, and it felt like they were singing ideas that were in my head. But as influences on me musically were political ones as well, and from the Black Panthers to the Weather Underground, from Martin Luther King to Che Guevara. Those were the books and the heroes of my youth that I wanted to try to provide some sort of like a way through my guitar amp to express my ideas about changing the world in a radical way.
Next, yes, quickly, yes.
I kind of disagree with you on capitalism. Capitalism, the way it is, it's not really a win-win situation. Yesterday I saw Dangerous Acts in Belarus and the Internet movie with Aaron Schwartz. And the thread that came back to me after watching this was I felt as if the bullies were all in charge, like I was back in high school and the bullies had taken over and ruled. And I feel the same way in the music industry now too, that I have a son that is a musician and having a very difficult time making his way. And what I realize is that we should pay for music. We should have an open internet. Things should be free, but there's an aspect of where I'm being entertained, be it a song that brings me to great emotion, a love song or whatever, or anything that I'm experiencing through music, someone else has given to me. I don't think it should be free. I think there should be a win-win situation here where we can figure out how to have all of this. And again, I feel like the music industry is controlled by another bully, like there is a bully in charge. And I'd like to know what you're going to do to change that.
I'd like to throw that right back at you. What are you going to do to change it? You know what I mean? I wrote a bunch of songs that riled a bunch of people up. Your turn. Your son's turn.
One more. Who's got the best one for the last question?
Who's got the best?
I got one.
Who really feels like they have the best and
right
quickest
there.
question? Like,
Yes, ma'am.
This is the best question.
I don't see where it's
I know you don't know me from Adam, Mike, but once every few years I bump into you and I say, Mike, when are you going to invite Rage Against the Machine to play in Traverse City? And then you give me a smile and you kind of shake your head. So
well,
Mike,
Rage
when are
Against
you
the
going to
Machine hasn't
invite
played a
Rage?
show in 3 years, so if Mike can get that together, my vote is yes. I'll be. He's got 1 of 4 right now, so I commit to a performance in Traverse City when Mike gets it together.
Come
he
on,
broke
Mike,
the band
get it
up.
together.
He's got to put it back together.
I'm going to do that if you're serious. Where would we do the show here, though? No, it's Rage Against the Machine. 20,000 people are going to show up.
We'd tear this place up. You don't want it in here.
And there needs to be a big pen.
Maybe the place
Gotta
where
be contained.
Maybe where they did the Casablanca last night. That was nice.
In the open space.
Yeah, that was.
Oh yeah.
That was nice.
I'll be able to get that for you.
All right, so you're saving music and the internet. Mike's putting Rage back together. We've done our work here today.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.
Drive safely. Thank you, Tom Morello. Let's hear for him.
Thanks, Mike. Happy 60th birthday to Michael Moore. Happy birthday.